Good morning, church. Can we just give a big round of applause of thanks and blessing to every person that we have heard has been serving in different capacities in our church, to Barry and those we heard earlier. Our church is a body with so many parts, and it's just incredible to hear stories about how God is moving in our midst. I wonder if this is familiar. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. It may be familiar for some of us, maybe for some of our younger generation, you're like, what on earth is that? But it's something that I heard growing up. And I've got to tell you, it doesn't really hold weight as a rule for life. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt, because the fact is, words have incredible power. And they actually do hurt us. They can hurt us. Words can actually be as damaging to the mind, to the heart, to the soul, as physical pain is to the body. And I wonder, as you think about how words can hurt, I wonder if there's any words that come to mind when you reflect on how words have hurt you in the past. I wonder if you can think of words that tore you down. I'd say you can remember them because those words actually stay with us. It can be really hard to get rid of them. I'll never forget my morning bus trips when I was in primary school. In fact, I used to dread them because it meant I had to go on the bus with Wade. I'm sorry if anyone's name here is Wade, but Wade was the man, and he sticks in my mind all these years later, over 30 years ago. This guy on the bus every single morning would tease me. And it kind of seems funny now when I think back to what he actually used to say to me. I can't remember the exact phrase he'd used, but it was something along the lines of talking about my long braid of hair, which was very long, and he would liken it to something like an old school toilet chain. So I don't know if anyone's seen one of those old school toilets where you have to flush the handle, but he would always talk about my hair reminding him of a toilet. And it seems ridiculous now, like totally silly. But at the time, I would get so distressed about this. I'd be fighting back tears as I would be arriving to school in primary school. And as I said, I can remember this story because it's stuck in my mind, because at the time, the words cut really deep. Words have the power to hurt. They also have the power to heal. Words can heal. And I wonder, as you think about words that have healed you, that have been a blessing to you, that have encouraged you, what words come to mind? Can you think of a time when someone said something to you that made you feel seen and known and loved? Maybe it's today. Maybe you've had words spoken to you today. Maybe it was this week. Maybe you're having to think back a little bit further. But can you think of a time and hold that in your mind? I could actually float through life after an encouraging word has been spoken to me. I love words of encouragement, so much so that I have kept a whole box full of cards, full of notes, full of little thank you letters that have been given to me over the years. It's in the back of my cupboard now, but it's there, and it's full of those incredible words that have been spoken to me. And knowing this, for my 21st birthday, my family actually asked people specifically for this special occasion to write something encouraging, and to share a memory that they had with me. And so all of these people in my world, right from primary school teachers all those years ago, to childhood pals, to current friends, work colleagues, mentors that were in my life. And my family compiled all of these notes and put them together with photos in this beautiful pink scrapbook. And it's honestly one of the best gifts I've ever been given. I've had other beautiful gifts given to me over the years, but this was one that held so much value to me. And I've loved over the years pulling it out and reading those words that were spoken over my life, that were intentionally gathered by people that knew me and loved me. Most of us appreciate receiving words of encouragement. I think it's fair to say that. Most of us actually appreciate that. But these words actually do more than just make us feel good. They do more than make us feel good because they actually have the power to put us in close proximity to God. They have the power to put us in close proximity to God and to see ourselves the way God actually sees us. And there's this incredible name in the Bible that God uses to refer to us, his children. He calls us his beloved. Now, I don't know if you've been called beloved recently, but that is how God refers to us. That is how he sees us. And in our world, where it's so easy to tear one another down, to criticize, to troll, to be keyboard warriors and type things that we would actually never, ever say to someone's face, we all need reminding that we are the beloved of God. And as we remind one another that we are loved, we affirm each other of our value, of our worth, of our significance, because this is God's heart towards us. And last week, for those of you who were here, we started a new series, Empowered. And Pastor Dane shared with us about speaking from God's heart. He reminded us of Jesus' words to the Pharisees, and he reminded us of what true religion really means when it comes to the words that we say. And so this morning we're going to continue our journey. We're going to dig a bit deeper into this invitation to speak from God's heart. And specifically, what I would like to talk to us about today is that we are called to use words to bless one another. And there's 3 ideas that I'd love to share with us this morning. And the first one is the power of blessing, because blessings have power. Scriptures are full of blessings. God blesses, Jesus blesses, priests bless, kings bless, prophets and prophetesses bless, parents bless children, the old bless the young. Over and over in the Bible, we see evidence of blessings being extended. Now, when we talk about this idea of blessing, what we mean is we are saying the truth of how God sees us, of his unique vision of who we are and who we are called to be. And we bless others when we intentionally encourage others. And so in our everyday, ordinary lives, as kids, as students, as professionals, as young adults or older adults, as teenagers, as parents and grandparents, we actually have the opportunity to let others know that they are loved, that they are treasured by speaking a blessing. And for those of us here who may be leaders here in our church community or in the workplace, we actually have the opportunity to speak life into people, to make room in our church for people to know that they are seen and valued. And so in the deepest sense, our calling as a church is to speak from God's heart. This is not just a nice idea, this is actually a deep calling to remind each other who we really are, to remind one another in the midst of pain, in the midst of heartbreak, amidst the challenges of life, that we are seen and loved. And there's a number of people who have spoke words of encouragement and blessing over my life over the years, but there's 2 in particular, as I was reflecting on our message today, that stand out to me. And I've had a mentor that's journeyed with me for over 30 years now. It's hard to believe that he's been in my life for that long. In the early days, he actually invited me to many meals with him, and during that time, he consistently spoke life over me, and he affirmed me of my calling. As I sat around the dinner table with him and his family, he spoke words of encouragement to me. And right now, we live in totally different states. We don't see each other that often, but he still continues to be one of my absolute biggest encouragers. I actually saw him at a funeral early this year, very briefly. We didn't really even get to talk, and afterwards he sent me a text message. And it was just at the right time. And he again spoke encouragement and lifted my spirits. And just this week, as I was preparing this message, I pulled a book off a bookshelf and an old crumpled letter fell out. And it was a letter from him, a letter that he had written to me a number of years ago. Yeah, and just affirming me of my journey, of how God was at work in my life and the future that he could see for me in Jesus. He's been there for some of my biggest challenges, for some of my hardest seasons, and he always seems to show up at just the right time and encourage me and remind me of who I am in Jesus. The other person is a young lady that's come into my life probably in just the last few years, and we've actually spent so many times in our living room speaking of the deep things of life. And she's actually been such a source of encouragement to me. She's a real wordsmith. The way she puts a phrase together, a message together, is just incredible. And at just the right time, she will speak a word of encouragement to me. And she's more than a decade younger than me, but her wisdom and discernment, which I believe is the Holy Spirit speaking through her, at just the right time is able to speak words to me that are beyond her years. And during times of challenge, also during significant occasions, this young lady has spoken words over my life. Professor, writer, and theologian Henry Nouwen reflects, to give someone a blessing is actually the most significant affirmation that we can offer. And as a church, as a community of believers, we're on this journey together. We come from so many different walks of life, but we are on this journey together, and we face adventures, we face challenges, we face closed doors sometimes, new opportunities, setbacks, shattered dreams, joy, doubt, disappointment, and deep questions. Seasons filled with sadness, seasons filled with excitement and overwhelming difficulty. This is the experience of life that we share. And on this journey, in the midst of all of the ups and downs, we are called to speak from God's heart, to come alongside and bless one another. Blessing is so much more than what we say over our food before we eat it. We actually get to encourage one another and remind one another of who we are. We are the beloved of God, nothing less than that. Every single individual here is the beloved of God, uniquely called to a purpose on this earth. And there's many beautiful stories in the Bible about this, but one in particular I'd just like to draw to our attention this morning, and it's in Genesis 12, verses 1 to 3. So just a couple of short verses I'd love for us to read together this morning. And I invite you to turn in your Bibles or pull up your device. Read it for yourself. I encourage you to do that. I'll give you a moment, but I'm also going to pop it up onto the screen. Genesis 12, 1 to 3. And these few verses have such a powerful message for us. The Lord said to Abram, "Leave your native country, leave your relatives, your father's family, and go to the land that I will show you. And I will make you a great nation. I will bless you and I will make you famous, and you will be a blessing to others. I will bless those who bless you and curse those who treat you with contempt. And all of the families on earth will be blessed through you." Here we see God telling Abram and Sarai, who later became Abraham and Sarah, I will bless you. Why? So you can be a blessing. In the original text, this means that Abraham and Sarah would be a channel of blessing from God to all the people around them. And so while this promise was for them as a couple, this blessing actually extended beyond them. It wasn't just for them alone, because the way that God reveals love to them extends to those who are not even in their family, who don't even worship their God. Everyone who comes into contact with Abraham and Sarah will witness this love from God and experience this blessing. This blessing would even be enjoyed and shared with the generations to come. And we are sitting here today as recipients of that blessing. We are invited to extend the blessing to others. As individuals, as a church, as a community, we are called to speak life and encouragement, to speak blessing and hope into the lives of those around us. Which brings me to the second idea that I'd love to share. And I'd love to talk to you about the art of blessing. Because blessing can mean speaking hope, and it can also mean to prophesy. Pastor and author Tara Vincross, in her book Deep Calling, talks about the fact that hope is actually at the very core of who we are as a church. We are a people of hope. And she also goes on to suggest, as she talks about this in her book, that hope and blessing is actually linked to the gift of prophecy. Now, if you haven't heard about this before, I invite you to tune in, because this is powerful. The Bible tells us that prophecy is one of the gifts that the Holy Spirit gives to his followers. And we see in 1 Corinthians 14, 1-5, where there is encouragement given to desire this gift of prophecy. I wonder if that's something we've woken up this morning saying, Lord, please give me the gift of prophecy. Why? Because the person who prophesies strengthens others, encourages them, and comforts them. That then strengthens the entire church. This is what the verses in 1 Corinthians are talking about when it comes to prophesying over others, to speak encouragement, to strengthen, to invite them into God's presence, knowing who they are in Jesus. And so to prophesy is to offer this strength and comfort from the heart of God. I wonder, when was the last time we intentionally prayed for the Spirit to speak through us into somebody else's life, to speak hope, to speak encouragement, knowing that in their circumstances, they are needing to hear from God. In the midst of the turmoil and the pain in the world around us, natural disasters, war, devastating tragedies, and story of heartbreak, as we speak from God's heart, we share a message of hope and blessing. This hope-filled outlook is both for the future and for now. We hold on to hope because Jesus lives in us. He is with us in this present moment. That's why we can hope. We also have hope because of his promised return in the future. So we have hope for then and hope for now. And hope is not just a wishful thinking. It's not just thinking, oh, maybe this will happen. Hebrews 11:1 says that hope is faith in action, an unshakable belief that God, what he has promised, it will come to pass. Hope is being able to see from where we are into the future that is good. It is being able to picture something far off that we can believe is going to be for God's best for us. It's a belief that there can be a better experience than what is happening for us right now. Now, living with hope actually takes courage. Courageous hope means that in our own lives, in our church, in our world, we believe that there is a reason to expect good things. We believe that this is not the end of the story for us, for the people we interact with, for the people in our world. I just want to pause for a moment and acknowledge something really important. What I'm not saying. I'm not saying that we should sugarcoat the pain and the hurt that we experience, because that is real. We are living in a broken world where there is pain, and sometimes things will stay broken on this side of heaven, and we have to live in that. And there is a time to grieve that. There is a time to lament that. I am certainly not dismissing that this morning. We live with the reality of brokenness in our lives. But to speak hope is to speak to the greater days that are coming. And maybe you needed to hear this morning, that there is hope for you, for your family, for your circumstances. The best is yet to come. And this is the blessing that we can speak to one another. As people who are called to speak hope where we live and where we serve, it's often in that in-between space, standing in that gap of what currently is and what will come. It's not an easy place to be, but we have been called to live out this hope and to bring the good news into those broken spaces. We're called to be part of the redemptive movement of God in this world. It's incredible. We are called to bless, not to curse. A call to affirm life wherever we see it. A call to build others up. And in life, it's easy to lose sight of the future and of hope. I get that. I experience that. The pain and the pressures and the problems in our daily life can blur our vision. But as we allow God to frame our lives and to shape our lives by the hope we have in Jesus, we can actually rise up with hope and share a true picture of God by speaking blessing and hope to others. The practice of blessing. What does this actually look like? It sounds good in theory, but what does it look like? It's a beautiful story that Henry Newen, the theologian I mentioned earlier, the quote that was shared. He taught at Harvard, at Yale, and Notre Dame, so very impressive. As he was becoming dissatisfied with the life of a professor, he was called to join L'Arche Daybreak in Toronto, Canada. And this was a community for people that had developmental disabilities. So he'd gone from serving as a professor to now being a part of this community. And he shares and reflects often about his time there in his writings. And he said suddenly he was with a group of people that didn't care less about all his achievements, about all the amazing things that he had done. They didn't care. They didn't care about how much he'd written or how much he knew. And this profoundly changed his life. And he talks about this one lady, and he describes her as a lady who had quite a significant disability. And she was a wonderful, wonderful lady. And he talks about this exchange that happened between the two of them. Her name was Janet. And Janet came up to him and said, "Henry, can you bless me?" And Henry remembers walking up to her and giving her a little cross, as was his custom and his faith tradition, on the head. He gave her a blessing. And she said to him, "Henry, no, that doesn't work. I want a blessing. That's not what I mean." And Henry remembers being really embarrassed, going, "I just gave you a blessing, Janet. Like, what else are you talking about?" But she wasn't satisfied. She kept pressing him further. "Henry, I want to be blessed." And he just kept thinking, "I really don't know what she's talking about." After that, they had a little prayer service. And he goes on to say that there were all of these people sitting in this little meeting together. And after the service, he said from the front, he said, "Janet wants a blessing." Janet walked up to him and said, "Yes, I want to be blessed." And she actually put her head against his chest. And then Henry just found himself looking in her eyes, and these words came to him. He said, "Janet, I want you to know that you are God's beloved daughter. You are precious in God's eyes. Your beautiful smile, your kindness to people in your house, all the good things that you do show us what a beautiful human being you are. I know you're feeling a little low these days, and I know that there is some sadness in your heart, but I want you to remember who you are. You are a special person, deeply loved by God, loved deeply by the people who are here with you." And Janet looked in Henry's eyes and she said, "Yes, yes, I know." Suddenly, Henry says he saw all sorts of discouragement just leave her face, leave her body. She seemed to be relieved of the discouraged feelings that she was carrying as she realized once again that she was the beloved of God. He blessed her that day, and as she went back to her seat, everyone else in the little group there said, "Henry, I want a blessing too. I want a blessing too." And they all started coming forward. And Henry remembers this experience so vividly that he wrote about it often. And it was as he was in his room later that he reflected and saw the importance of blessing. More than just a simple little action, but the words that he was able to speak over her, of indicating that she was the beloved of God. And I know that I want that kind of blessing spoken over me. I'm not just talking about nice words with empty meaning, but the type of words that are life-giving, straight from the heart of God. To be seen and known and blessed is one of the greatest gifts that we can give one another. And as a church, we're called to do this. So what are some other practical ways that this can look like? Well, there's a number of ways. The Holy Spirit moves in these circumstances because when we bless, we're not just making stuff up, we're actually saying what we know is to be true about God's people. And we know that He desires to share these things with them. Authors Gary Smalley and John Trent, in their book, The Blessing, talk about the importance of blessing others, and they talk about some important components of blessing. Now, this may not be appropriate or the case in every single time, but there's some really key points that we can take away from here. Meaningful touch. There's something when someone comes up to you and puts a hand on your shoulder, if you're comfortable with that, but there's something powerful about that when it's someone that you know and love and trust, or they grab your hand in that moment. When they speak a message to you, not just action, but speaking those words, when there's high value attached to the one being blessed, when we actually speak of someone's value and worth, when we talk about a special future. I shared before that my mentor would not just say, Alina, you're doing an amazing job. He's like, I can see what God has for you in the future, that He's going to continue to work through you, and he would pray for that for me. And then an active commitment to fulfill that blessing, because sometimes we actually have an opportunity to help people be all that God is calling them to be by our role in their lives. To bless someone is to truly see them, to affirm the gift that they are, and to speak to their potential. And so, church, I invite you to imagine what would happen if every one of us spoke words of blessing to one another, if friends spoke words of blessing, family members gave voice to what they see in one another, if parents blessed their children. I recently heard it shared that the fundamental need of our kids is to receive our blessing. It imparts love and acceptance and a sense of being believed in. The role that we can have as parents and caregivers in giving blessing and cultivating faith in the lives of our children is incredible. And being a parent now, I see this so clearly, the power of my words over my child's life. And this is just a small seed I'm planting this morning. It's a few little words, but imagine the impact that that would have if we spoke words of blessing over our kids and over the next generation. Imagine the difference we could make in our community. We have friends here at Springwood, and some of you may be familiar with this practice that they have. They have a tradition of blessing people on their birthday. And we found this out one time when it was actually Martin's birthday on a Saturday, and we were over at their place for lunch. And they said, when someone has a birthday in our home, we like to speak words of encouragement and say a prayer of blessing over their lives. Would that be okay? And Martin was like, okay. And so for the next few minutes, everyone in that room started speaking words of encouragement and blessing over Martin's life. And it was such a powerful experience that we actually decided we want that rhythm in our home. We want that ritual to speak birthday blessings. Birthdays are especially exciting in our house at the moment. We have a little person who's just turned 2. It was a few weeks ago and she's still speaking about it. It was just so exciting, the balloons and the cake and all the other things, the party hat. But amidst all the other special ways that we can celebrate birthdays, to speak a birthday blessing can carry so much significance. One more practical idea as we close this morning. The book Hero Maker, some of you may be familiar with it, talk about this concept of an I see in you conversation. Really simple. Basically, it's I see something in you. You fill in the blank with whatever is the appropriate affirmation. Just imagine what would happen if we started having these really simple but powerful conversations with people in our lives, in our church. I see this gift in you. I see God at work at you. I see this ability in you. These conversations of hope and encouragement have the power to change people's lives. And so, church family, I invite us to respond to this invitation to speak from God's heart, to bless one another. And so as we close today, this is where we engage and participate just for a minute or two before we sing our final song. But what I would love to invite you to do, whether you have come here by yourself or whether you have come here as a couple or with friends or family today, I'd like to invite you to put into practice what we have just spoken about. Now, this is a really simple blessing. It speaks about remembering who we are, about the words that we speak, and it has a beautiful verse from Numbers at the end. This is a guide if you would like to just simply read this to the person sitting next to you. I invite you to do that. If you want to make it your own and add something a bit specific and individual to the person sitting next to you, you're welcome to do that. So there's a couple of other variations. If you're not comfortable with doing that with the person next to you, or you didn't come with anyone, you can take a photo of it. You can spend this time receiving this blessing as God speaking it over you. You might be thinking about someone that you can share it with later. So please don't dismiss this thought if you're not in a partner, not with a partner or a couple or a family. But for those of you who are comfortable with speaking next to the person next to you, I invite you to take this time now. I'm going to invite our worship team just to provide some music as we do this. But please do take a photo of it regardless, just so you've got it with you. And just take a couple of minutes now to speak these words over the people next to you. Church family, I'm going to speak over us now and speak this blessing over all of us. Springwood Church, may you remember that you are the beloved of God. Springwood Church, may you live each day knowing that you are seen, that you are known, that you are loved. May you speak hope into the lives of others and allow them to speak into your life as well. May you affirm, may you bless, may you celebrate all those that you come into contact with. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. May the Lord turn his face towards you and give you his peace. Amen. I invite us to stand this morning as we sing our final song together.